You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. Scott Yu is a musical dynamo, conductor, violinist, chamber musician, soloist, TV host, artistic director. He wears many musical hats, and he returns to Winnipeg, perhaps with a toque on, joined by another exceptional musician, a frequent collaborator, musical and life partner, flute player Alice Dade. The married pair will certainly bring a musical synergy to the Crescent Arts Centre stage when they collaborate with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra tomorrow night. First, though, they've joined me in the Classic 107 studio. Welcome, Scott and Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, super excited to have you here and appreciate you taking the time to come down this morning. Lots to get through on this program, one that I'm very excited about. And I figured we best begin the conversation with the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, because he's sort of a dominant figure in music, shall we say, who opens tomorrow night's program. Many musicians have spent countless hours preparing and listening and performing the music of Bach. But you two had a very unique musical experience through the TV program you host, Scott, the PBS series Now Hear This, presented by Great Performances. You both traveled to Germany in the first season to explore the riddle of Bach, as the episode's called. Is that right, Scott?
That's correct. One of the best known pieces of Bach was the Bodneri from the Second Suite, and so when we were going to film this, the producer asked if Alice could be the co-host of the episode. I said, sure, that's great. And so we toured Leipzig. We went to Curtin, which is where Bach wrote his secular music, or a lot of his secular music. We went to Weimar, just lots of places, and we got a really great experience in Germany during Christmas time.
Oh, how special is that? Sounds like a real time of discovery. And the series itself, it's just the first classical music show on American primetime in about a half century. It's done wonders for the music and music fans. But what about for you as a musician? How has it influenced your music making, Scott?
I think that when you participate in something like this, you do get a different perspective. The director, Harry Lynch, is not a professional musician, but he is he's obsessed with classical music. Really obsessed with it. And so looking at this music through his eyes is so interesting, because he sees it in a slightly different way, or in a slightly different light. And so that you can't help but be affected by his viewpoint and also his enthusiasm. And so that's just really that's been life-changing.
Alice, what about for you? What did you discover about Bach and his music there in Germany that has stayed with you?
Well, I really enjoyed going to Curtin, which apparently in Bach's time they nicknamed it Kuh Curtin, which means cow curtain, because it's in the middle of nowhere. And he loved living there, but he wanted to get out because his sons needed to go to university, and there wasn't a university in Curtin. So just having the chance to go there and see this really kind of small utopia that he had, because he had this job and he had a good relationship with the prince there. But and he actually wrote the Brandenburg Concerti and sent them to Berlin, and they were rejected. So
not good enough, I guess.
No, not good enough. But it's just a very relatable story, and to be able to actually see it was a really special thing.
No kidding.
I really enjoyed it.
No kidding. I imagine you bring a little bit of that experience to your performances of Bach since, and that Bach Bodneri that Scott mentioned earlier. Let's chat a little bit about this orchestral suite number 2. It's an orchestral suite, but it's almost like a concertante, right? I mean, there's a lot of flute solo going on in this piece of music.
There's a lot of flute. Thank God we have this music.
Yeah.
I'm always jealous of the repertoire that Scott has as a violinist, but we have this suite. So whenever I get the chance to play this, or the Brandenburg Concerti, or the sonatas, or I jump at the chance. So we're lucky to have it, and it's beautiful music, and it's a little virtuosic, which this wasn't written for the flute that I have here, which is a metal flute. So it was really pushing the envelope there. I mean, he was asking a lot of the flute player, so I love it and respect it a lot.
You're very excited that Winnipeg audiences got the chance to hear you and your flute with Scott conducting in the orchestral suite number 2. It's just, it is such a jam. It's also the only minor key of the orchestral suites, and it just...
Good point.
Yeah, it moves along. It's got a real drive to it, doesn't it, Scott?
It does. What amazes me is that this is just a string orchestra with continuo, and then you add only a flute. But how different the piece sounds than just a string orchestra playing Brandenburg's Third Concerto or a Telemann Concerto Grosso or Tafelmusik or something. Like the flute is exploited in such a good way that it really makes the whole group sound different. Just one person. I think that's so interesting. It's like, like adding dye to just like a pitcher of water, just one drop can turn something into like a blue color. It's just fascinating that Bach, he lived in a time of no electricity, no cars, no internet, yet he was so, even in primitive times, he was so musically advanced. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really, really is. Performing music of Bach is always a special occasion, but I imagine one that's even more special for the two of you. I was listening to a past interview you gave. Was it music of Bach that brought you two together in the first place?
Wow,
Yes.
God, that's amazing that you have that kind of, you must have an incredible research team
No,
behind you,
it's just
Simon.
me, Scott. It's just me and YouTube, let me tell you.
Incredible. We were playing the Bach Brandenburg Concerto No. 4, and the person that we had hired to play one of the flute parts had become the principal flute of another orchestra. And so in a last-minute sort of mad dash, one of my closest friends said, "Hey, I know a flutist who I just played with, and she's really great, and let's hire her." What's her name? Alice Dade, and then so that's how we met.
I was in grad school at the time.
9 years later, we became a couple, and anyway, so yeah, I do feel that. You play Bach. It's just there's really nothing better to do in life than to get to play Bach. It's a privilege. It's an honor, and it's fun.
You both keep such busy schedules. Alice, in addition to performing, you're an associate professor at the University of Missouri. You're a writer and a lecturer. And Scott, I mentioned in the intro that you wear many musical hats, including roles as chief conductor and artistic director of the Mexico City Philharmonic and music director of the Festival Mosaic, plus a number of other festivals and engagements that take you around the world. People might assume as a married couple you get to make music together all the time, but do you? Or is a concert like this a little bit more of a rare occasion, Alice?
It's not rare, I would say. We try to curate as many opportunities as we can, and it's not that there are many pieces written for primarily violin and flute, but luckily Scott conducts. So in the summers, actually, we play together quite a bit, and we just
Three
as
months.
musicians-
3 months from now, she's playing the Cacciatorian Violin Concerto on the flute. I'm conducting. A few months after that, she's going to play maybe the Nielsen Concerto. So she keeps busy, and it's fun for us to travel together and do something like this. I mean, of course, this one is really special because I've been coming to Winnipeg since 2004. I've told Alice about the people, about Vicki Young, the executive director of the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra for 10 years. I've told her about the concertmaster, about the hotel, and now she actually gets to put a name with a face. So there's something very special about that too.
Yeah, before we get chatting more about that, if you're just tuning in, my name is Simon Rusnak, and I'm chatting with Scott Yu and Alice Dade in town to collaborate, as you just heard, with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra tomorrow night at, I should mention, the Crescent Arts Centre. That's Crescent Fort Rouge United Church, a bit of a venue change there. Scott, you mentioned that you've been working with the MCO since 2004. I remember you being in town playing the Vivaldi a few years back. You were play conducting.
Right.
How does it feel for you to be back in Winnipeg?
Oh, it's just, we were going to do a concert in 2020. Obviously, it was postponed. And there's something really nice about seeing, I don't know. I mean, these are people that I've known now for 18 years. And, very rarely do you go somewhere and you feel a sense of family. But certainly, whenever I see Nicola, who is one of their mainstays, you feel like you're seeing family, and so I feel very lucky that we've sustained such a long relationship over many seasons.
Alice, we were chatting off air. Not only is this your first time to Winnipeg, it's your first time to Canada?
Yes.
Well, welcome not only here, but to the nation. How does it feel to be in town? Does it live up to the expectation that Scott has set?
No, I've always wanted to go to Canada. I'm actually part Canadian.
Oh, no way.
It's great. It's Scott and I were talking about it the other day. It's just so interesting to see the different foods and see that there's sort of a European influence here that I really like, and just really the people make the place. Everyone has been so kind and friendly, so I'm so happy to be here.
Well, excited to have you, and excited to have you collaborating with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra. Just a great bunch of musicians they are. I'm sure it's going to be a sparkling performance tomorrow. As discussed earlier, there's music of Bach on the program, also some music of Bela Bartok, the music for strings, percussion, and celesta. Sandwiched between the two is a world premiere of a brand new flute concerto by Michael Fine, likely best known as a Grammy Award-winning producer. He's also an artistic director, an administrator, a clarinetist, I think, and more recently a composer. Alice, you played one of his first compositions, Skipping Stones, and recorded it on your CD Living Music, which came out in 2018. How did you come to know Michael and his music?
I came to know Michael through Scott because they knew each other from before, and Michael's just such a nice person, and he actually plays at Scott's festival at Festival Mosaic in the summer in California, and he sits behind me in the clarinet section, and we got to talking, and he's been a huge influence for me, not only as a friend, but as a mentor. He really helped me put together my CD, actually. So I really respect and really appreciate my friendship with Michael and his wife, Tammy.
And Scott, how would you characterize Michael's music? I mean, you know him as a producer and as a player, as a clarinetist, but how would you characterize his writing?
Michael has such an extraordinary ear, and he'll write something, and sometimes he'll send me a score and say, "Hey, what do you think?" And so he'll send me something. I get it in a PDF form. I look at it and I say, "Yeah, this is great. What is going on with that note there? It's just, it's like an intentionally quote wrong note." Mm-hmm. And I say, "That's really going to stick out." And he says, "No, it won't. It'll be fine." And then you play it and you realize, oh yeah, actually you don't really hear it at all. It just kind of colors the. So he really is. He has the advantage. He hasn't been composing for his entire life, but he's had a great ear his entire life. So he knows what's going to sound good when. And we just heard this piece last night for the first time. We just had the first rehearsal, and sure enough, it sounds great. It's very accessible music, but it's not saccharine by any means. And he has a lot of wit, and I think the audience will enjoy it. It's not a terribly long piece, but it says a lot in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Alice, did you want to add anything about the flute concerto?
I just think that, so this was written in 2017, I believe, and it's so interesting to see how he's changed as a composer. From Skipping Stones to the flute concerto. He's written another flute concerto that's about to be premiered. But I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to play it and hear it. And he just wrote the flute part so well, and there's just so many beautiful colors and imagery going on there. I love the piece.
It is going to certainly be a wonderful program. It's always special when there's a world premiere, also to hear music of Bach and Bela Bartok. You both brought your instruments along, which is very kind of you. And before I let you go, you're going to play a little number for us. What are we going to hear? Who wants to set this one up?
So we are going to play the infamous Bodineri from the Bach Orchestral Suite No. 2 that we are performing. This is the last movement of the piece, and it's also, if you do happen to watch Now Hear This is the piece that we performed in the bar scene.
Oh, no way. So here it is, the Bach Bodineri from the Orchestral Suite No. 2. such a jam and such a treat. Alice Dade and Scott Yu, thank you so much for joining me in the Classic 107 studio. So excited to have you here in town.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you so much.